Welcome to episode 6 of Etherton Events Saturday Showcase. Today we are interviewing Tucson artist Titus Castanza, whose large-scale collage are currently on display at Etherton Gallery's exhibition, Go Figure. Hi, Titus.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for making yourself available to talk about the work in our new show, Go Figure. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm hanging in there. Thanks, Daphne. Quarantining, and I am in my studio. So, yeah, it's a little squirrely, but I'm doing good.
Yeah. So, how does it feel to be in your studio these days? Has the quarantine, the shelter-in-place order changed the way you work or how you feel about the work you're doing?
Uh, yeah, it changed the way I feel in general. I mean, I do feel like in a way I'm a bit prisoner to my studio now, which changes my relationship with it. It took me a while to start getting back into the flow of my work because of that.
Okay.
And it's interesting how it's being in my studio, working in my studio. I'm usually in here all the time. It doesn't seem like that big of a lifestyle change to just be in your studio more and be on lockdown and quarantined. Because as an artist, I feel like I am quarantined and alone most of the time, whether I'm listening to music or not. But for this time, it seems a little different. It really does. It seems like because I have to, in a way, uh, consciously be in my studio as an applied kind of algorithm. It does changes my relationship with my process.
I was going to ask you to set the stage for us, but some of that we can actually see. But what kind of environment do you like to have in the studio? Do you listen to music? Do you prefer it to be quiet? Are you alone for long stretches of time? Do you get visitors? And how do you begin?
Yeah, it's kind of like all of the above there. I do spend most of my time in my studio alone, but the building is full of 30 artists, nearly 30, and we're on the top floor here. So I have Nick Georgiou next door. You got Alec Laughlin and Robert Redding, and everybody's in and out of their studios, and they pop in and say hi and hang out, have a drink, or they look at a piece you're working on and they scratch their head and whatnot. But yeah, for the most part, I'm alone. But it helps knowing there's someone next door, so you're not completely. So if you need a break, get a different perspective, I can go next door and look at some of that paper stuff over there.
Let's go back to the series of large-scale collage you've created for the show. And you talk about cutting up, and in fact you did several of your own paintings and drawings, and then in your own words resuturing them into something new. And
Yeah.
I was wondering what impulse impelled you to destroy your own work, and what does that feel like? I mean, and then how do you begin the process of creating something new from that?
Yeah, it was a strange process because mostly it wasn't so conscious of a thing. I didn't all of a sudden think, oh, let me do something new and start chopping things up. It was literally more of an awareness that just naturally started.
But
But
some of
then,
the work you cut up has been exhibited in the gallery.
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Some of those pieces I got back from the show, and what got me to chop those up is I see them for whatever length of time, and I get, in a sense, tired of them. The art goes someplace else. It has a life of its own. That's probably better because then I'm not completely inundated by it. But after a while, I think a piece of artwork stops giving to me. Usually, when I finish a piece of artwork, whether it's a portrait, anything, I usually sit with it for a while to learn from it, to understand what it was that actually happened. Uh, and I don't really know. Sometimes it takes a week to figure that out. Usually it takes a couple months at least. Even if it's a portrait, I'm rehearsing, I'm dissecting, I'm reverse engineering each brushstroke, and so I'm learning from the thing I did. I'm learning from it.
I wanted to talk about or hear from you about some of the overriding themes or ideas that are present in your work. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about that and using a few examples of collage that are currently in the show.
The narratives kind of present themselves as I work on the piece. like I was saying, a piece speaks to me. Sometimes it takes a year or two to understand what that narrative was. But definitely in my process when I'm working after I finish the piece, there's definitely some kind of conversation that was happening. That's what I call them, are conversations. I just let things happen without judgment, and I try not to apply any kind of narrative in that sense. Before I start out, I have this piece of board in front of me. I already know the size of it and the dimensions, and I'm kind of going through my studio and my flat files and going through drawings, and I have an idea of the narrative for this particular piece. Like the first one in the series was more about figure drawings and how I can create movement and motion in a new composition using all these minor compositions.
What about mentors or influences on your work? Is there anybody whose work you really admire or has made you think more about your own?
People over the years, like in college, I really liked the illustrators, the turn of the century illustrators, Dean Cornwell. I really liked Sargent for his ability for efficiency and economy. And then over the later on, I really started to resonate with the Impressionists and the Expressionists.
Can you talk a little bit about where you're from and what your connection to Tucson is?
I think I'm pretty much from Tucson. I came here when I was 10 years old. I grew up on the East Coast before that. I'm from New Jersey. Traveled around a lot as a kid, so from Maine to New York to Tennessee, New Jersey, just all over. But yeah, I'm from back east. I came to Tucson, grew up here quite a bit. I left when I was 20 to go to college. After living in Philadelphia and DC, I decided to come back to Tucson after being away for 10 years. I left when I was 20. I came back when I was 30 years old. And when I came back, I wanted to do away with the commercial illustration, wanted to be a studio artist, to really delve into why I wanted to be an artist in the first place, because it wasn't for illustration, what I learned over doing illustration. It wasn't for that. That's not what I was in search of. And that was a painful realization. So to talk about where I'm at now with my painful realizations, that you just got to accept that and move on and grow from it. I had to, the whole reason why I went to art school is to train to be an illustrator. I went through the illustration program, and then I had a career as an illustrator. I was actually making money, and I just had to walk away because I had to admit it's not making me happy. So I've been toiling away in my studio trying to figure out what it is that I do and why, and what kind of artist I want to be. And I still, for the most part, don't know. I think that's going to be a continued conversation. Yeah, maybe that's what keeps it interesting and vital, because vitality is not knowing.
Thank you so much, Titus, for sharing your time and insights with us. And this concludes episode 6 of Etherton Events Saturday Showcase. Thank you so much for tuning in.